知らないんだね。こぼれておこ Ram pam 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 like the beating kick drum entering your system. I'm a sickness symptom, hate addiction, make your mind. At me, I'm not the one you see. Only one guarantee, I just might destiny. Just to find out, we like years apart, but I won't lose hope. Rum pum 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 like the beating kick drum entering your system. I'm a sickness symptom, hate addiction. Make your mind up, pick one. This is more than fiction. Just a heads up, baby. Name any game and I'll play you like a champ. Cries of my enemies setting the ambience. Those electric suck, so I'm never giving I want. No, I say what I think, do nothing, never maybe. I travel so far just to find a home. We're like years apart, but I won't lose hope. There's more to the story than the things we know. I feel in my heart that I'm not alone. When darkness surrounds us, where do we go? I can hear a sound, not even my own. But I feel in my heart that I'm not alone. We are eternity high. Am I wrong if I don't want to wait? And if I trust myself more than the ones I face? If I feel like the